I died on the third day after my husband Gu Huaiyan, who was honored as the general who pacifies the north, died. When he died, he held my hand, but his eyes, dilated from blood loss, didn't look at me. Instead, he gazed into the distance, toward the direction of the capital city. There lived my dear cousin, Liu Yunyan. Qingxi, I can finally go see her. His voice was faint as a thread, yet contained a kind of joyful relief. If there is a next life, you don't need to save me. His last words were spoken to me. Not an entrustment, not a confession of remorse, but a hatred laced with poison. Yes, he hated me. He hated that when I was 15 in the icy lake water, I desperately dragged him back from the hands of death, but also caused him to forever lose the chance to marry Liu Yunyan. He was a great general with illustrious military achievements, a trusted minister relied upon by the emperor. Yet because I saved his life, the emperor voided his original betrothal to the Liu family under the pretext of a match made in heaven and instead bestowed marriage upon me. He felt that I had destroyed his undying devotion with Liu Yunyan, so he hated me for 10 years. During these 10 years as the mistress of the general's manor, I managed the household for him, served my mother-in-law with filial piety, navigated among the powerful families in the capital, paving the way for him in court. I kept the general's manor in perfect order, handed over all the trade routes and connections my father left behind to him, helping him consolidate his position in the military. But what I got in return was his increasingly cold gaze every time he came back from Liu Yunyan's place. It was when he was seriously ill. I took care of him for 3 days and nights without sleep. Yet the first thing he asked when he woke up was, "Did Yunyan come to see me?" It was when I blocked a poisoned arrow from his political enemy for him, injured my foundation, and could never bear children again. Yet when his mother-in-law scolded me as a hen that can't lay eggs, he coldly turned and walked away. In the end, to protect Liu Yunyan's reputation, during an assassination attempt on him, he desperately blocked a fatal blow for Liu Yunyan's carriage. He used his life to prove his love for Liu Yunyan, and used his death to give me the most thorough humiliation. At the mourning hall, Liu Yunyan, dressed in plain white, crying like pear blossoms in rain, as if she were the widow, while I, the legitimate Mrs. Gu, couldn't shed a single tear. My heart had already died in that year's icy lake water, along with my burning maiden's heart. I can finally go see her. If there is a next life, you don't need to save me. I held his gradually coldening hand, watching that relieved smile on his lips, my heart utterly desolate. I didn't defend myself, didn't even have a ripple of emotion. I solemnly and clearly answered him, "Okay, Gu Huaiyan, I promise you, if there is a next life, I, Shen Xingqi, will never save you again." Consciousness fell into endless darkness, then was suddenly yanked back by a burst of sharp clamor. "This is bad. The general has fallen into the water. Someone come quick. Both the general and Miss Liu are in the water. Miss Shen, please go and look. The general won't make it." The frozen lake. The general, Miss Liu. These familiar words were like steel needles, stabbing fiercely into my mind. I snapped my eyes open as the bone-chilling wind whipped snow particles into my face, instantly jolting me awake. Before me was no longer the solemn mourning hall, nor my room with its heated floor that still couldn't provide a trace of warmth, but a lake covered with a thick layer of ice. In the center of the lake, a huge ice hole emitted eerie white vapor, while several servants frantically tried to reach the bobbing figures in the water with poles. On the shore, a group of maids and servants were in chaos. Among them was my personal headmaid, Chun Dao. Seeing me wake up, her face drained of all color as she cried out, "Miss, you're finally awake. You just suddenly fainted earlier. Young Master Gu is still in the water." I looked down at myself. Heavy winter robes of brocade, embroidered with intricate auspicious cloud patterns. The hem of my skirt still stained with snowy mud from when I had fallen earlier. My hands and feet were ice cold, my whole body trembling uncontrollably, not from the cold, but from the overwhelming hatred and wild joy. I've come back. I've really come back, returned to 10 years ago, to the very day when Guo Huaiyan and Liu Yunyan both fell into the lake. In my previous life, it was today that Gu Huaiyan brought Liu Yunyan to the outskirts to admire the snow. Liu Yunyan accidentally stepped through thin ice and fell into the water. Gu Huaiyan jumped in to save her, but because the icy water was too cold, they were both trapped in the lake. When I heard the news and rushed over, I saw him struggling in the icy water and jumped in without a second thought. I had been frail since childhood and didn't know how to swim at all. With sheer brute force, I pushed him toward the shore. In the end, he was rescued, but I had been submerged in the icy water for too long, injuring my body and leaving permanent damage that made me unable to bear children ever again. Also, because I saved him, the emperor was moved by my deep devotion and loyalty, believing this to be a marriage destined by heaven, and actually issued an imperial decree to annul Gu Huaiyan's engagement with the Liu family and bestow the marriage upon me instead. From then on began my 10 years of laughable existence. I became that vicious, eyesore, ungrateful stumbling block in his and Liu Yunyan's love story. Everyone said that the general of Zhenbei was noble and upright, yet was entangled by a woman who used schemes to force him into marriage. They forgot that if not for me, Gu Huaiyan would have frozen to death in this icy lake long ago. They also forgot that I too was the legitimate daughter of the minister's residence, and should have had countless better choices. Miss, what are you standing there in a daze for? Seeing me motionless for so long, Chuntao was so anxious she was about to stomp her feet. You need to think of something quickly. If we're any later, it'll be too late. All eyes on the shore were focused on me. There was concern, there was urging, and there was also a hint of barely perceptible schadenfreude. I could even clearly see that Gu Huaiyan's mother, old Madame Gu, was being surrounded by several servant women, standing not far away, her gaze scraping over me like knives. She was Liu Yunyan's paternal aunt. Liu Yunyan's mother was her younger sister, who married into the Liu family years ago and passed away after giving birth to Liu Yunyan. Old Madame Gu had always raised this niece as her own daughter, and had long been hoping for her to marry her son. What did she want me to do? Of course, just like in my previous life, to jump in without a second thought and trade my life for her son's life. That way, I would both save her precious son and preferably die in the lake, making room for her understanding and considerate niece Liu Yunyan. Too bad she is going to be disappointed. I slowly straightened up, the cold wind blowing my cloak, making it flutter loudly. My gaze calmly swept over the figure sinking in the lake, without a ripple of emotion in my heart. Oh no, wait, there was something, an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. Gu Huaiyan, didn't you say that if there were another life, I needn't save you? See, I listened to you, miss. Seeing me turn to leave, Chuntao was completely dumbfounded and grabbed my sleeve. You, where are you going? Young Master Gu is still. What is all the noise? I coldly interrupted her, my voice not loud, yet like ice beads smashing onto everyone's hearts. The Gu family keeps so many servants and guards. Are they all just freeloaders? Saving people is their duty. It is not the turn of a weak woman like me to jump into the water. My words stunned everyone present. No one expected that the Shen family's eldest daughter, who had always been devoted to Gu Huaiyan with such infatuation and gentle obedience, would say such cold and heartless words. I paid no attention to their shock and walked straight toward the group of panicking servants, my voice suddenly rising with a hint of authority. What are you all standing around for? Hurry up and pull him out. Use ropes. Use long poles. If anything happens to young Master Gi, all of you will answer with your heads. My furious rebuke snapped the servants awake, and they hastily found ropes and clumsily began the rescue. As for me, I resolutely turned around without sparing the lake another glance. Not far away, old Madame Gu, her face livid, supported by a maid, quickly walked toward me. Before she arrived, her sharp rebuke reached me first. Shen Qingqi, stop right there. Huaiyan is still in the water with his life hanging in the balance. Yet not only do you not think of saving him, you actually want to walk away. Is your heart made of stone? I stopped in my tracks, slowly turned around, and met her eyes full of fury. Aunt Gi, you jest. I smiled faintly, though the smile didn't reach my eyes. If I truly wanted to leave, I wouldn't have stayed to direct the servants to save him. I simply think that rather than me, a weak woman, jumping in and causing chaos, turning it into two people drowning together, It is better to stand here and calmly command the situation. I paused, my gaze sweeping past her to the figure behind her, also dressed in plain white, now trembling. Besides, the one who should really be anxious isn't that cousin Union. I blinked innocently. After all, young Master Gu fell into the water trying to save her. This bond is much more significant than me, an outsider. My words were like a resounding slap, striking hard across the faces of old Madame Gu and Liu Union. Old Madame Gu's complexion instantly turned from pale to purple, her hand pointing at me, trembling. You shameless woman, what nonsense are you spouting, Liu Union? Meanwhile, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, immediately reddened her eyes, leaning delicately against old Madame Gu and choking out, "Aunt, please don't blame Sister Qingti. It is all my fault for letting Brother Huaiyan come save me. If anything happens to Brother Huaiyan, I won't live either." What a delicate, blooming white lotus flower. Still the same old recipe, the same old flavor. In my last life, I was deceived by her pitiful appearance, always feeling that I had stolen her beloved from her, harboring guilt towards her, yielding to her in everything ridiculous. I let out a cold laugh, stepped forward, and grabbed Liu Yunyan's wrist. Her hand was warm and dry, while mine, having just fallen in the snow, was ice-cold and bone-chilling. "What are you saying, cousin?" I pressed my cold hand against the back of her hand, watching with satisfaction as she flinched. "Young Master Gu is blessed with good fortune. How could anything happen to him? It is you, cousin, dressed so lightly. Don't let yourself catch a cold, after all. When young Master Gu is rescued later, he'll still need you to personally take care of him." I deliberately emphasized the 4 words, personally take care of. Liu Yunyan's face turned pale in an instant. She wanted to use this incident to establish that she and Gu Huaiyan were deeply devoted to each other, while also keeping herself clean to gain a good reputation as an innocent victim caught up in it all. I just wouldn't let her have her way. What nonsense are you spouting? Huaiyan Gege and I are completely innocent. Liu Yan urgently tried to pull her hand back, but I gripped it tightly. 5 reputation. I raised an eyebrow, my smile growing even brighter. "Cousin, you jest. Everyone in the capital city knows that you and young Master Gu are already betrothed. Your reputation is quite intact, isn't it? Intact enough for the 2 of you to come alone to this suburban frozen lake to admire the snow. Intact enough for him to nearly throw away his own life trying to save you. Our young Master Gu is still soaking in the lake. Yet here you are, cousin, standing safely on the shore. Tell me, if word of this gets out, will people praise your unwavering love, or will they curse you as a femme fatale who, to save her own skin, couldn't even care about her own fiancé?" Liu Union was left speechless by my words, her pretty face pale as paper. Just then, a burst of cheers erupted from the crowd. "They got him out. They got him out." I turned to look and saw that Gu Huaiyan had been dragged onto the shore. He was soaked through, his lips dark purple, already fallen into unconsciousness. Old Madame Gu cried out, "My son," and immediately threw herself over. Liu Union also seemed to have found her savior, broke free from my hand, and ran over crying Huaiyan Gege, wanting to kneel beside him and put on a display of undying devotion. How could I let her get her wish? I strode forward quickly, getting there before her, and blocked the way in front of Gu Huaiyan. "Stop right there," I shouted sternly, my gaze cold as ice. "Liu Union, who do you think you are? With so many people watching, you an unmarried young lady, throwing yourself at a man in public. What kind of decency is that?" Liu Union froze at my rebuke, standing there dumbfounded, looking at me with teary eyes, appearing so aggrieved as if I were the villain. "Sister Qingxi, I was just worried about Brother Huaiyan." I scoffed. "Are you worried about him, or worried that others will say you stood by and did nothing? Now that he has been rescued, there is no need for a young lady like you to make a spectacle of yourself here." I paid her no more attention and turned to give orders to the servants. "Quick, carry young Master Gu to the carriage and take him back to the Gu residence immediately to fetch the imperial physician. Chundao, you go arrange for hot water and prepare ginger soup." My orders were clear and decisive, without a trace of panic. Everyone present was cowed by my commanding presence and instinctively followed my instructions. The chaotic scene instantly became orderly. Old Madame Gu had wanted to say something, but seeing her unconscious son, she could only glare at me resentfully in the end and urge the servants to hurry. I watched coldly as Gu Huayan was carried onto the carriage, my heart without the slightest ripple. Living a second life, I won't be foolish again. Gu Huayan Liu Yunian, the Guillot family. What you owe me, I will collect back piece by piece, principal and interest. Pay attention to this critical moment. Everyone's waiting for the protagonist to jump in and save someone, but she turns around and leaves. This isn't cold-bloodedness. This is strategic character reconstruction. Where did her tragedy begin in her previous life? From the moment she jumped into that icy lake, that heroic rescue of her husband not only ruined her body, but also gave the emperor a reason to decree their marriage, binding her to Gu Huayan's side for 10 years. What did she do in this life? She replaced emotional sacrifice with rational command. What is even more ruthless is what she said. Rescuing people is the servant's duty. It is not the turn of a weak woman like me to go into the water. This isn't shirking responsibility. This is redefining the rules of the game. She is telling everyone, I'm not that fool who disregards everything for love. You thought I was. I'm a smart person who calculates, weighs options, and protects herself. The most brilliant part is what she said to Liu Yunian. On the surface, she is caring for her cousin, but in reality, she is binding Liu Yunian's reputation to Gu Huayan's life. If Gu Huayan dies, Liu Yunian becomes a femme fatale. If Gu Huayan lives, Liu Yunian is indecent before marriage. Either way, Liu Yunian loses. This is the first step of a dimensional strike, making every choice the opponent has the wrong one. The carriage galloped all the way and soon arrived at the general's manor. Imperial physician Wang was a master healer in the palace and was quickly summoned over. I stood outside the door, listening to the chaos inside, Madame Gu's wailing, Liu Yunian's sobbing, and the maid's hurried footsteps all woven together like a lively farce. And I simply sat calmly on a chair in the corridor, holding the hand warmer that Chuntao had passed me, feeling that little bit of warmth. In my past life, at this moment, the person lying inside half-dead was me, and Gu Huayan, under Liu Yunian's consolation, was drinking the ginger soup she had personally brewed for him, listening to how worried she was about him. How ironic. I don't know how much time passed before the door creaked open. Imperial physician Wang walked out looking utterly exhausted. Madame Gu was the first to rush forward. Imperial physician Wang, how is my son? Imperial physician Wang stroked his beard and sighed. The young master was soaked in ice water for too long. The cold has penetrated his body and his high fever won't subside. The situation is not very optimistic. The next 3 days will be critical and require careful nursing. If he can pull through, there will be no major problem. If he cannot pull through, old madam, please be mentally prepared. Upon hearing this, Madame Gu's vision went black, and she nearly fainted. Liu Yunian hurriedly supported her, crying even harder. Aunt, you must take care of yourself. Brother Huayan will surely be fine. I slowly stood up, walked before Imperial physician Wang, and curtsied. Thank you for your trouble. Imperial physician Wang. I wonder, are there any particular requirements for this care? Imperial physician Wang looked at me with some surprise, seemingly not expecting me to remain so composed under these circumstances. He nodded. Samo needs to watch over him day and night, administer medicine on schedule, and constantly observe changes in his condition. If there are any abnormalities, come fetch this old man immediately. Thank you for your guidance, Imperial physician Wang. After seeing Imperial physician Wang off, I turned to look at the aunt and niece who were crying in each other's arms. Aunt Gu, since young Master Gu needs round-the-clock care, why not let cousin Yunian take on this task? She and young Master Gu shared deep feelings, so she would surely be more devoted than others. Old Madame Gu was about to nod, but suddenly caught herself. Liu Yun was an unmarried young lady, and Gu Huayan was her fiancé. Having an unmarried girl watch over a man's bedside day and night, even if they were betrothed, wouldn't sound good if word got out. Moreover, Liu Yunian had already attracted criticism by going out alone with Gu Huayan today. If she were to stay overnight at the general's manor to care for him, even jumping into the Yellow River wouldn't wash away the scandal. Old Madame Gu hesitated. Liu Yunian also realized this, her face turning deathly pale, biting her lip without speaking. I sneered inwardly, but showed a trace of difficulty on my face. That is true. After all, cousin is an unmarried young lady, so it is indeed inconvenient. Then let's have the maids in the manor take turns looking after him. Although I'm an outsider, the Shen family and Gu family are old family friends after all. If Aunt Gu doesn't mind, I can stay and help out. My words were beautifully spoken. I both pointed out the awkwardness of Liu Yunyan's status and proactively took on the responsibility of caring for him while also conveniently distancing myself. I was helping as an old family friend, not as a future daughter-in-law. Old Madame Gu was left dizzy by my reasoning and couldn't think of a rebuttal. She could only say Then we'll trouble Miss Shen. You're too kind, Aunt Gu. Over the next few days I stayed at the General's manor. Nominally I was helping to look after Gu Huaiyan, but in reality I was coldly observing this farce from the sidelines. Gu Huaiyan's high fever wouldn't subside. Sometimes he was unconscious, sometimes he talked nonsense, and the name he always muttered was Yunyan. Old Madame Gu was mentally and physically exhausted. She wished she could kick me out and have Liu Yunyan come take care of him. But afraid of public opinion, she didn't dare act rashly. As for Liu Yunyan, she came to visit every day, crying like a pear blossom in the rain each time, but never dared to linger long at Gu Huaiyan's bedside. I was happy to have the peace and quiet and took the opportunity to properly plan out my future path. In my past life, after I married into the Guyu family, in order to please Gu Huaiyan and old Madame Gu, I foolishly took out all my dowry to subsidize the General's manor. The business connections my father left me were also gradually devoured bit by Gu Huaiyan, ultimately becoming his tool for amassing wealth. Even more detestable was that 3 years later, someone framed my father with the crime of colluding with enemies and treason. My father was the Minister of Revenue, clean and honest his entire life, never having done anything to betray the Emperor's grace. Yet those so-called evidence pointed to a trade route under my father's name, precisely the one I had handed over to Gu Huaiyan to manage. Gu Huaiyan used that trade route to secretly smuggle military weapons and collude with foreign enemies, but after the incident was exposed, he pushed all the blame onto my father. The entire Shen family was executed, and I, because I was Gu Huaiyan's wife, narrowly escaped death, but from then on became the daughter of a criminal official, unable to hold my head up even more in the Guyu family. It wasn't until just before my death that I pieced together the truth from Gu Huaiyan's scattered words. As it turned out, everything was his conspiracy. He wanted the Shen family's wealth and connections, but didn't want to bear the reputation of devouring a family without heirs, so he orchestrated this whole scheme. The Shen family fell. My father died. I became an orphan daughter, and could only become more dependent on him, letting him manipulate me at will. And Liu Yunyan, shortly after the Shen family's downfall, was carried into the General's manor in the name of bringing good fortune, becoming Gu Huaiyan's equal wife. What a show of lovers finally united. In this life I will never let the tragedy repeat itself. I will protect the Shen family, protect father, protect myself. That night, I was organizing my thoughts in the side room when Chuntao hurried in. Miss Young Master Gu is awake. I stood up unhurriedly, smoothed out my dress, and only then walked towards Guian's room. As soon as I entered, I smelled a strong medicinal odor. Gu Huaiyan was half-propped against the headboard, his face pale, eyes sunken, lips still tinged with a hint of dark blue, but those eyes were still as sharp as an eagle's. When he saw me, a flash of complex emotion passed through his eyes. Shen Qingxi, young Master Gu, is awake. I walked to the bedside, maintaining just the right distance. How are you feeling? He didn't answer my question, but frowned and asked, when I was in the lake, who saved me? I smiled slightly. It was the servants of Gu residence. They pulled you up with ropes. What about you? He stared into my eyes. I remember you were there too, me. I blinked in feigned surprise. I'm just a weak woman who can't even swim. How could I possibly go down to save someone? I was only helping to direct things from the shore. Gu Huaiyan's pupils constricted slightly. He seemed to remember something. In his previous life, when he was at his most desperate, it was a pair of cold hands that pulled him out of the water. In his days, he heard a woman shouting in his ear, Gu Huaiyan, you're not allowed to die. That voice, those hands, that reckless devotion. It was Shen Qingxi. He thought this life would be the same, but so you didn't go into the water. His voice was somewhat hoarse, revealing no emotion. No. I met his gaze calmly. Why would I go into the water? I'm not anyone to you. The room fell into a deathly silence. Gu Huaiyan looked at me, the expression in his eyes growing increasingly complex. He recalled the conversations he had heard while unconscious. Why didn't Miss Shen go down to save him? She is a delicate woman. Going down would only cause more trouble. That may be true, but looking at her cold and detached manner, does she seem worried about the young master at all? Who knows? Maybe she doesn't care about our young master at all. So it turned out she really hadn't saved him. Not that she couldn't, but that she wouldn't. He had always thought that Shen Qingxi's feelings for him were genuine. Even if he continued to neglect her, to ignore her, she would still, just like in his previous life, sacrifice everything for him without hesitation. But now, young Master Gu, my voice interrupted his thoughts. Since you're awake, I should head back. The matters of the GU residence will naturally be handled by Madame Gu and the servants. As an outsider, it is not appropriate for me to stay long. As I spoke, I turned to leave. Wait. Gu Huaiyan's voice came from behind me, carrying a hint of urgency. I stopped in my tracks, but didn't turn around. Is there something else? You? He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. These past few days, thank you for staying to help. I tilted my head slightly, the corner of my mouth curling into a faint smile. Young Master Gu is too kind. The Shen family and the Gu family are old friends. I merely did what little I could. Young Master, take good care of yourself. I'll take my leave now. I didn't give him a chance to continue speaking and stepped out of the room. Behind me came the sound of a porcelain bowl hitting the ground, and Gu Huaiyan's suppressed coughing. I turned a deaf ear. Gu Huaiyan, in this lifetime. Don't ever think you'll get anything from me again. After returning to the Shen residence, I immediately began laying out my plans. First, I sought out Father. I didn't tell him about my rebirth. That was too absurd. He wouldn't believe it. I only reminded him to pay attention to certain people's movements in court, using recently heard some rumors as my reason. Father, I heard that Vice Minister Zhao of the Ministry of Revenue has been getting quite close to some generals at the borderlands lately. Father put down the scroll in his hand and glanced at me. Qingti, why are you suddenly concerned about court matters? Your daughter is just worried about Father. I lowered my eyelashes. Vice Minister Zhao is Gu Huaiyan's man. The Gu family is powerful now and they have the Empress backing them. With Father opposing them at every turn in court, your daughter fears. Father was silent for a moment, then let out a sigh. Qingti, you've grown up. There was relief in his tone. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I've long been aware of Vice Minister Zhao's little tricks. It is just that the time hasn't come yet. I don't want to alert them prematurely. My heart eased. So Father wasn't unaware at all. He was simply waiting for the right moment. In my past life, Father was set up and framed by them precisely because he was too upright and unwilling to collude with Vice Minister Zhao. In this life, I want to help Father strike first and catch all those parasites in one fell swoop. Father, I hesitated for a moment, but still spoke up. Your daughter has a favor to ask. Speak, your daughter wishes to learn how to manage the family's businesses. Father was stunned for a moment, then began to laugh. What is this? Don't want to get married anymore. Want to be like your mother was back then. Become a businesswoman. I laughed too. Your daughter just thinks that if I learn more skills, no matter which family I marry into in the future, at least I won't be bullied. Father looked at me, the smile in his eyes gradually fading, replaced by a trace of heartache. Qingti, about the Gu family, Father, don't worry. I interrupted him. Your daughter knows what she is doing. Father was silent for a long while, finally nodding. All right. Starting tomorrow, I'll have Steward Chen teach you. Those properties your mother left behind are your dowry to begin with. It is good to learn how to manage them sooner. Thank you, Father. In the following days, I studied managing the business under Steward Chen's guidance, while closely monitoring the movements of the Zhu family and the imperial court. Gu Huaiyan recovered from his illness quickly. Young people have strong constitutions, and with Imperial Physician Wang's careful treatment, in just half a month he was able to get out of bed and walk around. Once his illness was cured, the emperor finally found time to inquire about his falling into the water. Beloved Minister Giyu, I heard that you fell into the water some days ago and nearly lost your life. Is this true? Gu Huaiyan knelt in the golden Luan hall and respectfully replied, In response to your majesty, this is indeed true. It was Wei's momentary carelessness that dragged down cousin Miss Liu. Fortunately, the servants at home rescued us in time and I barely managed to keep my life. The emperor stroked his beard and looked at him with a meaningful gaze. I also heard that the young lady of Minister Shen's household was present. Isn't she utterly devoted to you? How come she didn't jump in to save you? Gu Huaiyan's body stiffened slightly. This matter had long since spread throughout the capital city. Some said Shen Qingqi was heartless and ungrateful. Some said she was timid and afraid of trouble. And others said she was smart, knowing that jumping in herself would also be suicide. So it was better to direct from the shore. But no matter what people said, the matter of the Shen family's young lady refusing to save someone in mortal danger had already become gossip for idle chatter throughout the capital city. Your Majesty, Gu Huaiyan carefully chose his words. Miss Shen has been frail since childhood and doesn't know how to swim. Given the urgent situation at the time, it was a wise decision for her to stay on shore and direct the servants in the rescue. This humble subject was able to recover his life thanks to Miss Shen's excellent coordination. His words were airtight, both clearing my name and saving his own face. But the emperor acted as if he hadn't heard, saying to himself, I remember that I personally declared that whoever could save Minister Gu from peril would be granted a marriage to her. Now it seems this marriage need not be rushed into. Gu Huaiyan suddenly raised his head, a flash of joy in his eyes. What did His Majesty the Emperor mean by this? Could it be that he was going to revoke the imperial decree of marriage? Your Majesty, enough, go back and recuperate first. The Emperor waved his hand. A marriage is a major matter. Let me consider it further. Gu Huaiyan suppressed the wild joy in his heart and kowtowed in gratitude. What he didn't know was that the eunuch at the Emperor's side was quietly taking note of this scene. The news of the Emperor postponing the marriage grant soon reached my ears. I was in the study going over the account books upon hearing this news. I merely gave a faint, But Chuntao was extremely anxious, miss. What does His Majesty mean by this? Is he going to cancel your marriage? What will you do in the future? What will I do? I put down the account book in my hand and smiled. Only without this marriage can I do what I want. But, Chuntao, I looked at her and said seriously, you must remember, marriage is not a woman's only way out. Rather than marrying someone who doesn't love you and being stuck in a hopeless marriage, it is better to hold tight to the chips in your hand and manage your own life well. Chuntao nodded as if she understood, but didn't quite grasp it. I knew she wouldn't be able to fully understand it right away. But that was fine. Time would prove everything. After a few more days, news suddenly came from the palace. Her Majesty the Empress wanted to see me. I changed into a simple and elegant dress and followed the eunuch who delivered the summons into the imperial palace. Inside Fengyi Palace, incense smoke curled upward. The Empress sat upright on the phoenix throne, wearing a bright yellow palace gown with a 9 phoenix-facing sun hairpin on her head, dignified and noble, yet unable to conceal the fine lines at the corners of her eyes and the harshness between her brows. This subject woman Shen Qingqi pays respects to Her Majesty the Empress. May your Majesty live 1,000 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. I performed the formal ceremony properly. Rise. The Empress's voice betrayed neither joy nor anger. Grant her a seat. After expressing my thanks, I sat down on an embroidered stool. Only sitting on half my buttocks, my posture humble. This palace has heard that when Huaiyan fell into the water some days ago, you were right there on the shore. Yet you did not go down to save him. The Empress got straight to the point. In reply to your Majesty, this is indeed true. I answered respectfully. This subject woman has been frail since childhood and cannot swim. At that critical moment, after thinking it over, this subject woman felt that rather than jumping in the water and causing more trouble, it would be wiser to command the servants from shore to carry out the rescue. The best strategy. The Empress sneered coldly. You're quite good at making excuses for yourself. How come this palace heard that your complexion was calm at the time without a trace of worry, as if the one who fell into the water wasn't your fiancé? but a stranger, your majesty sees clearly. I replied neither humbly nor arrogantly. This subject and young Master Gu have no marriage agreement. That day I just happened to be present, and out of the friendship between our families I stayed to help. As for my calm complexion, this subject believes that the more critical the moment, the more one must remain calm to make correct judgments. If I had been like those maids and servants, only knowing how to cry and shout, what good would that do? The Empress was taken aback by my words, clearly not expecting me to respond this way. In her view, I should have been flustered and panic-stricken, kneeling to beg for mercy. What a sharp-tongued girl. The Empress sneered. But don't forget, His Majesty once said that whoever saves Huai'an would be granted marriage to him. You didn't save him, so naturally this marriage arrangement is void. Your Majesty is right. I nodded. This subject never coveted this marriage arrangement. The reason I stayed to help that day was simply because I couldn't bear to see young Master Ju come to harm. After all, the Shen and Gaigu families have been friends for generations. Now that young Master Gaiyu is safe and sound, this subject's wish is fulfilled. As for the marriage, this subject never harbored such hopes. These words of mine were spoken with utmost candor. The Empress was stunned for a moment. She originally thought I would beg and plead like in my previous life, begging her to grant me a marriage with Gu Huai'an. She had prepared a whole bunch of harsh words, waiting to humiliate me. But my reaction was completely beyond her expectations. You don't want to marry Huai'an? The Empress asked in disbelief. This subject's daughter wouldn't dare say she doesn't want to. I lowered my head slightly, concealing the coldness in my eyes. It is just that this subject's daughter knows she is not worthy of young Master Gu. Young Master Gu is a great general with illustrious military achievements, a trusted pillar minister His Majesty relies on, while this subject's daughter is merely an ordinary official's daughter, with neither stunning beauty nor exceptional talent. Forcing us together would only put young Master Gu in a difficult position. Moreover, I paused, raised my head, and looked directly into the Empress's eyes. Young Master Gu already has someone else in his heart. This subject's daughter has no wish to be the villain who breaks up lovebirds. The room fell into dead silence. The Empress's expression changed repeatedly. She knew who I was talking about. Liu Yunyan, her own niece, old Madame Gu's own niece, Gu Huai'an's childhood sweetheart and beloved. What do you mean by that? The Empress's voice became somewhat shrill. This subject's daughter means nothing else. I lowered my head again, my tone respectful. This subject's daughter simply feels that lovers becoming married couples is a beautiful thing. This subject's daughter is unwilling to insert herself and destroy this beauty. Every single word I say is like a soft blade, concealing a needle within silk. On the surface, I'm helping Gu Huai'an and Liu Yunyan fulfill their wishes. In reality, I'm reminding the Empress, I can see right through your Gu family's schemes. You want me to marry Gu Huai'an for two reasons. First, for the Shen family's wealth and connections. Second, to silence the gossip. After all, rumors about Gu Huai'an and Liu Yunyan have long been circulating in the capital city. If they don't find a legitimate wife to prop up appearances now, the Gu family's reputation will be ruined, and I am the fig leaf they've chosen. But I refuse to let them have their way. The Empress looks at me, her gaze growing increasingly complex. There is anger, confusion, and a trace of wariness. Shen Qingxi, well done. After a long pause, the Empress slowly speaks. This palace originally thought you were weak and easy to bully. I didn't expect that this palace misjudged you. Your Majesty flatters me. I rise and curtsy. This subject merely knows her own limits. If there is nothing else, this subject will take her leave. Wait. The Empress's voice comes from behind me. I stop in my tracks. This palace will ask you one more time. The Empress's voice carries a hint of weight pressure. Do you truly not wish to marry Huai'an? I slowly turn around, meeting her gaze. This subject truly does not. What if His Majesty insists on bestowing this marriage? I smile faintly, my smile carrying a touch of desolation. Your Majesty, you are also a woman. You should understand. A forced melon is not sweet. If His Majesty insists on granting this marriage, I will naturally accept the decree with gratitude. However, I paused, speaking word by word. A husband who doesn't love me, a mother-in-law who constantly targets me, a childhood sweetheart, eyeing me like a tiger. Such days. Your Majesty, how long do you think I could endure? 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years? When I've exhausted all my efforts, used up all my youth, and end up dying far from home, would your Majesty and the Gu family be satisfied then? My voice wasn't loud, but it was like a heavy hammer pounding hard on the Empress's heart. She froze. She remembered her own past. Back then, when she married the Emperor who was still the Crown Prince, she too was full of joy, thinking she had found a good match. But what happened after? The Emperor had another woman in his heart, and treated her with indifference. She struggled bitterly in the harem, enduring from Crown Princess to Empress. How much effort she put in, how much grievance she suffered, only she herself knew. Now, she was about to push another woman into the same abyss. You. The Empress opened her mouth but couldn't speak. I didn't look at her again, and turned to walk out of Fengyi Palace. Sunlight fell on me, warm yet dazzling. I took a deep breath and straightened my spine. This battle I had won. After leaving the palace, I didn't return home directly, but went to the capital city's largest tea house. This is the capital city's information hub. High-ranking officials, nobles, peddlers, and porters all like to drink tea, chat, and exchange information here. What I want is precisely this information. I sat down in a private room on the second floor, ordered a pot of premium Biluokan tea, and quietly listened to the conversation coming from next door. Have you heard? His Majesty the Emperor has postponed the marriage between General Gu and the young lady of the Shen family. Exactly. I heard it is because the young lady of the Shen family didn't jump into the water to save someone, and His Majesty the Emperor feels she is not deeply devoted and righteous enough. Teach what deeply devoted and righteous? I think the Gu family looks down on the Shen family's meager dowry and wants to climb to a higher branch. True. General Gu is Her Majesty the Empress's own nephew, a favorite before His Majesty the Emperor. Although Minister Shen is upright and honest, the Shen family is ultimately just a scholarly household, incomparable to those aristocratic clans. So who will General Gu marry? Who else could it be? It must be that childhood sweetheart cousin of his, that young lady from the Liu family. I heard the two grew up together and have long been secretly in love. TSK, this General Gu really has good fortune. One is the young lady of the minister's residence. The other is the jewel of the Liu family, both wanting to marry him. Exactly. I put down my teacup, the corner of my mouth curling into a cold smile. What a secretly in love. What a jewel of the Liu family, Liu Yunyan. Just you wait. I won't let you get your wish. Returning to the Shen residence, I immediately summoned Steward Chen. Uncle Chen, I have something I need you to handle, miss. Please speak. Go investigate the Liu family's background, I said in a low voice. Their family's business connections, and also Liu Yunyan's birth mother. Steward Chen was stunned for a moment. Miss Liu's birth mother. Didn't she pass away long ago? Precisely because she passed away, we need to investigate. A trace of coldness flashed in my eyes. I want to know how she died. In my past life, I didn't know much about Liu Yunyan's background. Only that she was old Madame Gu's niece, grew up in the Gu family since childhood and was childhood sweethearts with Gu Huaiyan. But I vaguely remember that Liu Yunyan once mentioned her mother after getting drunk. She said her mother was killed by someone, and the person who killed her mother was in the capital city. At the time, I thought she was just talking nonsense while drunk and didn't take it to heart. But thinking back on it now, this matter might be quite significant. Yes, miss, Steward Chen replied. This old servant will take care of it right away. Also, I called out to him, have our family's estates in the north start purchasing large quantities of grain. The more the better, the faster the better, purchase grain. Steward Chen was somewhat confused. Miss, it is just after the autumn harvest. Grain prices are at their lowest. Buying so much grain, what use is it? Just go do it. No need to ask so many questions. You'll understand, in my past life, 3 years later in the summer, the north suffered a great drought with no harvest at all. The court opened the granaries to distribute grain, only to discover that the granaries had long been hollowed out by vermin. The common people were displaced and homeless. Corpses of the starved littered the fields and civil unrest erupted everywhere. The emperor was furious. Upon thorough investigation, a large batch of corrupt officials was implicated. Among them was Lord Zhao, Vice Minister of Revenue, and to protect himself, Lord Zhao pushed all the blame onto my father. That trade route used for smuggling military equipment became the final straw that crushed my father. In this lifetime, I need to make arrangements in advance. With grain, I'll have bargaining power. When the time comes, I'll not only protect the Shen family, but also catch all those vermin in one fell swoop. Days passed one by one. While learning to manage the business, I secretly investigated the Liu family's background and had Steward Chen purchase large quantities of grain. The gossip and rumors in the capital city gradually died down. The Gu family's side also stopped coming to find me. The emperor never issued an edict to grant the marriage, nor did he explicitly cancel the engagement. The matter was just left unresolved like that. Some said the Shen family's young lady was abandoned by the Gi family. Others said it was the Shen family's young lady herself who didn't want to marry. Still others said the emperor had other plans and was selecting a better candidate for General Gusi. I turned a deaf ear to these rumors. I knew the real show was still to come. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. During this year, I managed the business my mother left behind in perfect order. I opened an embroidery shop in the capital city, named it Cloud Brocade Pavilion, specializing in high-end ready-to-wear clothing. I brought in the best embroiderers from Zhongnan and designed many innovative styles, quickly making a name for myself in the circle of noble ladies in the capital city. I also opened a rice shop in the south part of the city, named Shen's Grain Store. On the surface, it dealt in grain trade, but secretly, I was constantly stockpiling grain in the north. Steward Chen was initially somewhat doubtful about my arrangements, but seeing me conduct business so successfully, he gradually came to trust me. Miss is truly a born business person, he said with admiration. If the master knew Miss had such abilities, he would surely be very gratified. Uncle Chen flatters me too much, I smiled. These are just trivial tricks. The real important matters are still ahead. During this year, quite a few things happened on the Gu family's side as well. Gu Huaiyan was dispatched to the borderlands for training. It was said that the emperor intended to groom him, wanting him to accumulate more military merit. Old Madame Gu was busy making arrangements all over the capital city, trying to find another marriage match for Gu Huaiyan. As for Liu Yunyan, she still lived at the Gu residence under the pretext of keeping her aunt company, staying indoors and waiting for Gu Huaiyan to return and marry her, and I became the least worried about marriage old maid in the capital city. Many people came to the Shen residence to propose marriage, but I politely declined them all. Father asked me why I was unwilling to marry. I said I hadn't met the right person yet. Father sighed and didn't force me anymore. He knew that I was heartbroken by what happened with the Giyu family. He thought I was waiting for Gu Huaiyan to have a change of heart. He didn't know that what I carried in my heart wasn't some romantic feelings at all. What I was waiting for was an opportunity to completely turn the tables. 2 more years passed. The 3-year agreement finally arrived. That summer, just as I remembered it, the north suffered a great drought with no harvest at all. When the news reached the capital city, the entire court was shaken. The emperor immediately issued an edict to open the granaries and distribute grain, only to discover that half of the national granaries were already empty. Outrageous. The emperor flew into a rage in court. Where is my grain? Who stole my grain? All the civil and military officials were silent as cicadas in winter. Minister Zhao of the Ministry of Revenue turned deathly pale, trembling all over. He knew that this day had finally come. Just as the emperor was at his wit's end, I donated 50,000 shy of grain to the court in the name of Shen's Grain Store. 50,000 shy. This number shocked the entire capital city. You have to understand, grain prices had already risen to 10 times their normal level. 50,000 shy of grain was worth a fortune. Where would a small grain store get so much grain? The emperor summoned me in person. Shen Qingxi, do you know the crime of deceiving the sovereign? The emperor sat on the dragon throne, looking down at me from above. You're just a young lady from an inner chamber, and your grain store has only been open for 2 years. Where did you get 50,000 shy of grain? I knelt on the ground, answering neither humbly nor arrogantly. In reply to your majesty, This subject anticipated 3 years ago that there would be a great drought in the north, so I stockpiled grain in advance. These 50,000 she of grain were all purchased bit by this subject, using her own dowry silver. The accounts are crystal clear. If your majesty does not believe me, you may send people to investigate 3 years ago. The emperor frowned. How did you know there would be a great drought 3 years later? I raised my head, my gaze calm and open. This subject has little talent but understands a bit of astrology. 3 years ago, this subject observed the stars at night and discovered that the north would face a great disaster. This subject dared not speak recklessly to confuse the masses, and could only silently prepare for any contingency. Now that the disaster has indeed occurred, this subject boldly wishes to donate all 50,000 shy of grain to the court to resolve this urgent crisis. This subject has only one small request. Speak. I took a deep breath and spoke word by word. This subject requests that your majesty thoroughly investigate the matter of the national treasury deficit. Those parasites have not only stolen your majesty's grain, but have also harmed countless common people. This subject earnestly begs your majesty to restore justice to the realm. After speaking, I kowtowed heavily, my forehead touching the ground, not rising for a long time. In the Golden Luan Hall, there was complete silence. The emperor looked at me, his eyes extremely complicated. After a long while, he spoke. Good. I grant your request. In the days that followed, a huge uproar erupted in the court. The emperor issued an edict to thoroughly investigate the case of treasury deficit, implicating as many as dozens of officials. Minister Zhao of the Ministry of Revenue bore the brunt, found to have embezzled 1 million taels of silver from disaster relief funds and colluded with borderlands generals to smuggle military equipment, an unpardonable crime to save himself. He wanted to shift the blame onto my father, claiming that the smuggling route for military equipment belonged to the Shen family. But I had long been prepared. I presented all the evidence I had collected over 3 years, ledgers, letters, witnesses, physical evidence, ironclad proof that left him with no defense, your majesty. Minister Zhao shouted hoarsely in the court. Minister Shen and this humble subject are accomplices. That trade route was lent to this humble subject by him. Utter nonsense. My father stepped forward and refuted righteously. That trade route was already transferred under my daughter's name 3 years ago. Over these 3 years, all the accounts have been crystal clear. Never once have any contraband passed through. Minister Zhao, you must not make such slanderous accusations. Minister Zhao was stunned. He didn't know that 3 years ago, I had already requested that trade route from my father, cutting off all possible avenues he could exploit. You, he pointed at me, trembling all over. It is you. You orchestrated this. I stood in the corner of the great hall, watching his shameful display, the corners of my mouth curling into a faint, cold smile. Yes, I orchestrated it from that winter 3 years ago. I've been waiting for this day. Lord Zhao, you must pay with your life for what you did to the Shen family in my previous life. When Lord Zhao was dragged away, he was still shouting madly, Shen Qingxi, you venomous woman, may you die a horrible death. I stood where I was, my expression calm as still water. Lord Zhao, I said indifferently, my father lived a life of integrity and never did anything to betray the Emperor's grace. You exploited his trust, trying to drag him down with you. Now that the truth is exposed, you try to implicate him. How can there be such a shameless person in this world? Lord Zhao was so choked by my words he couldn't speak, only able to watch helplessly as the guards dragged him away. The Emperor sat on the dragon throne, taking all of this in. Shen Qingqi, he called out to me. I knelt down. This subject is here. You did very well. The Emperor's voice carried a hint of approval. To have foreseen today's events 3 years ago and laid the groundwork in advance, both protecting the Shen family and rendering great service to the court. How should I reward you? I kept my head lowered, my mind racing. This was an opportunity to completely break free from the Jiyu family's entanglement. This subject dares not claim credit. This subject merely did what any citizen of Great Liang should do. If your majesty insists on a reward, this subject boldly has one request. Speak, This subject requests that your majesty revoke the verbal decree from 3 years ago. The emperor was stunned for a moment. 3 years ago, there was an oral decree: whoever saves Gu Huaiyan shall be granted marriage to them. You don't want to marry Gu Huaiyan anymore? The emperor asked with great interest. In response to your majesty. I lifted my head and looked straight into his eyes. This subject has never thought of marrying General Gu. That oral decree from back then was something your majesty said on a whim. This subject did not save General Gu, so naturally has no qualification to receive this grace. Moreover, I paused, General Gu's heart belongs to another. This subject does not wish to be the villain who breaks up lovebirds. This subject begs your majesty to grant this wish. The emperor fell silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed. Good, 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 he said the word. Good 3 times. I thought all the women in the world would want to marry a hero like Gu Huaiyan. I didn't expect you to be an exception. So be it, I approve. The emperor waved his hand. From now on, you and the Gu family have nothing to do with each other. This subject thanks your majesty for your great kindness. I kowtowed heavily, and the heavy weight in my heart finally settled. Freedom. I'm finally free. The news of Minister Zhao's downfall quickly spread throughout the capital city. Along with it spread the story of the Shen family's daughter foreseeing the drought 3 years ago and donating grain for disaster relief, as well as the news that the emperor withdrew the oral decree and the marriage between the Shen and Gu families was cancelled. For a time, I became the hottest topic in the capital city. Some say I'm far-sighted and meticulous, some say I'm scheming and calculating, and others say I don't know what is good for me, refusing to be the young mistress of the Northern Pacification General's manor, insisting on staying an old maid instead. I just laugh off these rumors compared to the infamy that covered me in my last life. What do these gossips amount to? That evening I was in the study going over the accounts when Chun Tao hurried in. Miss General. General Gu is here. My hand paused slightly. Then I regained my composure. Have him wait in the flower hall. Yes. I put down the account book, straightened my dress, and only then walked slowly toward the flower hall. 3 years unseen, Gu Huaiyan had changed greatly. He was darker and thinner, but his presence had become even sharper. Years of life in the borderlands had worn away most of that noble young master's refined air, replacing it with the killing aura of iron and blood from the battlefield. He stood in the center of the flower hall, his back to me. Hearing footsteps, he slowly turned around. Our eyes met, and his gaze was complicated to the extreme. Shen Qingqi. He spoke, his voice somewhat hoarse. General Gu. I bowed slightly. It has been too long since we've exchanged greetings. Has the general been well, you? He paused, seeming not to know what to say. That winter 3 years ago, she hadn't gone into the water to save him. In the past 3 years, she hadn't written him a single letter, nor had she inquired about any news of him. 3 years later today, she donated grain for disaster relief, achieving great merit, and personally sent his uncle, Lord Zhao, to prison. That is right. Lord Zhao was his uncle, the younger brother of his mother, old Madame Gu. He didn't know how she had managed to do it, but he knew that the woman before him was no longer the obedient, submissive young lady of the Shen family from 3 years ago. Why would you do this? He finally asked. What? I raised an eyebrow. Lord Zhao. He is my uncle. Gu Huaiyan's voice was somewhat strained. You clearly knew this, yet you still sent him to prison. Why? I looked at him, not a ripple of emotion in my eyes. Are you mistaken about something? I said softly. Lord Zhao embezzled disaster relief funds, smuggled military weapons, brought calamity to the nation and people. These are all things he did himself. What does it have to do with me? I merely presented the evidence before His Majesty, letting the truth come to light. Does the general think that I should have helped Lord Zhao conceal his crimes for the sake of your family connection? Huaiyan was rendered speechless by my words. He wanted to say something, but found he couldn't get the words out. Yes, Lord Zhao had committed heinous crimes. She had only exposed them. What right did he have to accuse her? Also, I continued, the general's words just now really puzzle me. You said I clearly knew that Lord Zhao was your uncle, but General Gu, what relationship is there between you and me? 3 years ago, His Majesty's verbal decree was already nullified. You and I are nothing more than two strangers. Why should I care about your uncle's status? Gu Huaiyan's expression changed again and again. He stared at me, his gaze as if trying to see right through me. Shen Qingqi, you've changed. Is that so? I smiled. People always change. General Gu has been at the borderlands for 3 years. Haven't you also changed a lot? The old you wouldn't have talked to me like this. My smile faded. Which old me is General Gu referring to? The one who jumped into the icy lake without hesitation to save you? Or the one who handed over father's trade routes and connections with both hands? Or the one who blocked that poisoned arrow for you? Got fundamentally injured and has been unable to bear children ever since. Huaiyan froze. He didn't understand what I was saying, jumped into the icy lake. She clearly never went into the water trade routes and connections. She never gave them to him, blocked a poisoned arrow. He never encountered an assassination. You, what nonsense are you spouting? He frowned. I looked at his bewildered eyes, a cold laugh rising in my heart. Yes, in this life, none of those things happened, because I didn't let them happen, nothing. I withdrew my gaze, my voice returning to calm. General Gu, it is getting late. If there is nothing else, please leave. The Shen family's temple is small and cannot accommodate a great Buddha like the general. Gu Huaiyan's face turned green and pale in turns. He, the mighty general who pacifies the north, when had he ever been given such a dismissal? Shen Qingqi. His voice rose a few notches. Do you think just because you brought down Lord Zhao, you've won? Let me tell you, the Ga Yu family is not to be trifled with. Is that so? I looked at him, the corner of my mouth curling into a meaningful smile. Then I'd like to see just what the Ga Yu family can do to me. General Ga Yu, 3 years ago you said something. I wonder if you still remember it. He frowned. What words? I stepped forward, coming within inches of him, and lowered my voice. You said, if there is a next life, I needn't save you. Gu Huaiyan's pupils shrank sharply. He had never said those words. But for some reason, the moment those words came out of her mouth, his heart wrenched painfully, as if in some place unknown to him, he really had said those words. You? I listened. I interrupted him, my voice soft yet every word clear. I didn't save you, and I won't save you again. From now on, you take your broad road. I'll cross my single plank bridge. The honor, disgrace, rise and fall of the Gu family has nothing to do with me. Shen Qingqi. With that, I turned and left without sparing him another glance. Chuntao, see the guest out. After Gu Huaiyan left, I stood by the window watching his departing figure. My heart calm as still water. In my previous life, I gave everything for him, only to end up dying in a foreign land. In this life, I won't repeat the same mistakes, miss. Chuntao walked over cautiously. Are you all right? I'm fine. I turned around. A faint smile on my lips. I'm very well. I've never been better. Chuntao looked at my smile, and for some reason her heart felt a little sour. She had followed Miss for so many years and had never seen Miss smile so relieved. After Lord Zhao's house was raided and he was thrown in prison, the Gu family was considerably implicated. Although old Madame Gu tried her best to distance herself, claiming she knew nothing about what Lord Zhao had done, the rumors and gossip from the outside world still caused the Gu family's reputation to plummet. Although the emperor did not hold Gu Huaiyan accountable, his attitude toward him had clearly grown much colder. The originally certain ennoblement had also been postponed indefinitely. Old Madame Gu was so anxious she was getting worked up, going everywhere to ask people for connections, trying to salvage the situation. But times had changed, and those who used to fawn over the Gu family now avoided them like the plague. It is all that Shen Qingxi. Old Madame Gu flew into a rage in the manner. If not for her, how would the Zhao family have gotten into trouble? How would our Gu family have fallen to such a state? Lu Yunian sat to the side, silently pouring tea for her. Aunt, please calm down, she said softly. Right now, the most important thing is to find a way to help Brother Huaiyan get through this crisis. As for that, Shen Qingqi, there will be plenty of opportunities to deal with her later. You make it sound so easy, old Madam glared at her. Right now everyone in the court is watching our family's jokes. Who would be willing to help us, Aunt? Lu Yunyan's eyes darted around. Actually, there is one way. What way? Hasn't Aunt always wanted Brother Huaiyan to marry me? Lu Yunyan lowered her head. a blush spreading across her face. Now that the marriage arrangement with the Shen family has been annulled, and Brother Huayan doesn't have a legitimate wife, if at this time Aunt petitions His Majesty, the Emperor, for an imperial edict to grant our marriage, and have me marry Brother Huayan. This way, Brother Huayan would have the support of the Liu family. Although the Liu family isn't as wealthy as the Shen family, my grandfather does have some connections in the court. With his help speaking up, Brother Huayan's situation might improve somewhat. Old Madame Gu's eyes lit up. Good, what a great idea. She grabbed Liu Yan's hand. Union, you're so clever. I'll enter the palace right away to petition Her Majesty the Empress. 3 days later, an imperial edict came from the palace. The emperor granted a marriage. General of Northern Pacification Gu Huayan would marry the legitimate daughter of the Liu family, Liu Yunyan, as his legitimate wife. When the news spread, capital city was in an uproar. Some said this was the emperor's compensation to the Gu family. Others said it was Her Majesty the Empress who had pulled strings behind the scenes. Still others said that Liu Yunyan had waited 3 years, and finally the clouds had parted to reveal the moon. When I heard this news, I was at Yunjin Pavilion checking the newly arrived fabrics. Miss Chuntao hesitated. General Gu got married, I know. I didn't even look up, continuing to flip through the silk in my hands. This moon white one is nice. Can make a few winter garments, miss. Aren't you upset? I raised my head, looking at her face full of worry, and couldn't help but laugh. Chuntao, why should I be upset? I put down the silk and said softly, Hu Guayan marries. What does it have to do with me? I've never liked him, but... No buts, I interrupted her. I only care about one thing right now, whether this winter's new styles can hit the market before the 12th lunar month. Chuntao looked at my carefree demeanor and for some reason felt both heartache and admiration. Her miss had really changed, becoming stronger and stronger, more and more unfathomable. Gu Huayan and Liu Yunyan's wedding was held very grandly. Her Majesty the Empress personally bestowed the phoenix coronet and red robe, and old Madame Gu even brought out the dowry from the bottom of her chest, vowing to give her niece a magnificent wedding. Liu Yunyan, wearing bright red wedding robe, sat in the bridal sedan chair, a satisfied smile on her lips. She had waited so many years and finally waited for this day. From now on, she would be the legitimate mistress of the general's manor, Gu Huayan's rightful wife. No one could ever take her position away again. Huayan Geigi, she said silently in her heart, I will definitely be a good wife and make you love me forever. Gu Huayan rode on a tall horse, walking at the front of the wedding procession, but his face showed none of the joy a groom should have. He didn't know why, but his heart always felt somewhat empty, as if something was missing. When the wedding procession passed by the entrance of the Shen residence, he couldn't help but look up. The main gate of the Shen residence was tightly shut. The ivy on the courtyard wall had already turned yellow, and a few withered leaves drifted down with the wind. She wasn't there, or rather she simply didn't care. A wave of irritation rose in Gu Huayan's heart, and he suddenly kicked the horse's belly, speeding up. On the 3rd day after Gu Huayan's wedding, I received a letter. The letter came from the north. Steward Chen said it was news from our estate in the north. Miss, something's happened in the north again. Chen's expression was grave. Although this year's drought has eased, a locust plague has arisen. The grain we've stockpiled will probably need to be sent out in another batch. Locust plague. I frowned. In my previous life, there was no locust plague. Could it be that because I changed too much, the trajectory of history has also shifted? How large is the scale of the locust plague? They say it blocks out the sky, and wherever it passes, not a blade of grass remains. Steward Chen sighed. The crops in several prefectures have all been destroyed. I fell silent for a moment, passed down the order, transport all the grain from the northern granaries to the disaster area. In addition, allocate another 100,000 taels of silver for purchasing grain and providing relief to the disaster victims. 100,000 taels. Steward Chen was shocked. Miss, that is all of our profits for this year, I know. I looked at him, but compared to silver, human lives are more important. If these disaster victims don't get relief today, they'll become refugees tomorrow. When there are too many refugees, they'll rise up in rebellion. Once a rebellion breaks out, it is still the common people who will suffer. Moreover, I paused. If these people are exploited by those with ulterior motives, the consequences would be unthinkable. Steward Chen looked at me, his eyes full of admiration. Miss has a foresight. This old servant is in awe. This old servant will arrange it right away. Wait, I stopped him. For this disaster relief, don't use the Shen family's name. Do it quietly under the names of Yunjin Pavilion and Shen's Grain Company. Why is that? A tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind, I said softly. The last grain donation already made the Shen family too conspicuous. If we're high profile again this time, I'm afraid it will invite unnecessary trouble. Steward Chen suddenly understood Mrs. Brilliant. The locust plague continued for a month and finally gradually subsided after autumn arrived. Although the court also sent people for disaster relief, the efficiency was low and corruption was rampant. The grain that actually reached the hands of the disaster victims was only 10 or 20% at most. Instead, it was I who, under the names of Yunjin Pavilion and Shen's Grain Shop, quietly provided relief to tens of thousands of disaster victims, earning an excellent reputation among the common people. Of course, all of this was done in secret, and outsiders knew nothing of it. In their eyes, Miss Shen was still that extraordinary woman who donated grain for disaster relief 3 years ago, and had now withdrawn from capital city's social circles, quietly running her own business. Until one day, an unexpected person appeared before me. It was a late autumn afternoon, and I was checking accounts at Yunjin Pavilion. Miss, someone outside requests an audience. A clerk came in to report. He says his surname is Xiao. There were quite a few people with the surname Xiao in capital city. Which Xiao family is he from? He didn't say, he only said he came from the north. The north. My heart stirred and I put down the account book. Show him in. Before long, a man wearing a dark-colored long robe walked in. He was about 25 or 26 years old, tall and slender with handsome features, and an air of natural authority between his brows. But what caught my attention most were his eyes. They were unfathomably deep eyes, as if they could see through everything, Miss Shen. He cupped his hands slightly. I've long admired your reputation. You're too kind, sir. I stood up and returned the courtesy. May I ask how to address you, sir? I am Xiao Jingyan. Xiao Jingyan. This name exploded like a thunderclap in my mind. Xiao Jingyan, the current crown prince. The emperor's legitimate eldest son, the empress's own child, the future heir to the throne of Great Liang. Why would he come here, crown prince? Your highness, I suppressed the shock in my heart, keeping my face calm. This subject's daughter was discourteous, not knowing of your highness's arrival, and failed to greet you from afar. Xiao Jingyan waved his hand. Miss Shen need not be so formal. I came incognito today precisely because I didn't want to disturb others. Please have a seat, your highness. I invited him to sit in a chair and personally poured him a cup of tea. May I ask what brings your highness here? Xiao Jingyan took the teacup but didn't drink, only looking at me, Miss Shen. I came today because I want to ask you something. Please speak, your highness. The locust disaster in the north, the grain for disaster relief, it was you who provided it, wasn't it? My heart skipped a beat, but my face remained impassive. Why would your highness say that? Miss Shen need not hide it. Xiao Jingyan put down the teacup. I investigated in the north for a month and finally traced the source of the grain. Yunjin Pavilion, Shen's Grain Shop. They're all businesses under your name. Did you think that by changing the name, no one would know? I fell silent for a moment. Since your highness already knows, why bother asking this subject's daughter? Because I want to know, why did you do this? Xiao Jingyan's eyes fixed on me. Donating grain for disaster relief brings both fame and fortune. That is human nature. But you deliberately did it quietly, leaving no name, seeking no benefit. That doesn't make sense unless... His gaze sharpened. You have other schemes in mind. I looked at him, the corners of my mouth curling into a bitter smile. Your highness overthinks it, I said softly. This subject only doesn't want to see those disaster victims starve to death. As for fame and fortune, this subject no longer needs them. Don't need them. Xiao Jingyan raised an eyebrow. All under heaven hustle for profit. All under heaven bustle for gain. Miss Shen does business with great success. How could you not need fame and fortune? I lowered my head, my fingers gently rubbing the rim of the teacup. Your Highness, some things, once you've lost them, you never want them again. For example, empty fame. For example, true sincerity. For example, sincerity. For example, those things you once thought were important, but in the end discovered were worthless. Xiao Jingyan looked at me, a trace of surprise flashing in his eyes. He hadn't expected that a woman barely over 20 would say such words. Miss Shen, he said in a deep voice, I would like to ask you for a favor. What favor? I would like to ask you to become my advisor. I froze. Advisor? The Crown Prince's advisor? Your Highness, this subject is merely a woman from a merchant family. How could I serve as your Highness's advisor? You're being modest. Xiao Jingyan stood up, walked to the window, and stood with his hands behind his back. 3 years ago, you foresaw the drought and stockpiled grain. 3 years later, you ferreted out the vermin and donated grain for disaster relief. Your vision, your boldness. I'm ashamed to admit I can't compare. If such a person were to become my advisor, what great undertaking could not be accomplished? I looked at his back, my heart stirring up tremendous waves. In my previous life, I knew nothing about matters at court. I only knew that after the emperor passed away, the crown prince succeeded the throne and changed the era name to Yongzhang. But I didn't know how much open rivalry and hidden scheming, how much bloodshed and carnage the crown prince had experienced before that. Now the crown prince has personally come to ask me to be his advisor. What does this mean? It means I will step into the vortex of the court, matching wits and courage with those old foxes. It means I will have no way to retreat anymore. But I looked at Xiao Jingyan's back, gradually coming to a decision in my heart. In my previous life, I only wanted to be a quiet young lady of a wealthy family, not asking about worldly affairs, not competing or fighting. But what did I get in return? I got my husband's coldness, my mother-in-law's difficulties, my rival's framing, my father's wrongful death, and my own miserable death. In this life, I don't want to hide anymore. I want to stand at the highest place, so that those who once hurt me will never have the ability to hurt me again. Your Highness. I stood up and walked to his side. This subject has a question. Why did your Highness choose this subject? There are countless capable people in the court, and those more talented than this subject are everywhere. Why did your Highness specifically take notice of this subject, and nobody? Xiao Jingyan turned around and looked straight into my eyes. Because of your eyes. Eyes I have seen many people. In some people's eyes is greed, in some people's eyes is ambition, in some people's eyes is fear. But in your eyes, he paused, his voice lowering. In your eyes, there is something I have never seen before. What is it? It is the calmness after experiencing the vicissitudes of life. Xiao Jingyan said slowly, as if you have already lived through a lifetime and seen through all the illusions of this world. My heart trembled violently. He saw through it. No, impossible. He was just guessing based on intuition and didn't know the truth. Your Highness flatters me. I suppressed the turmoil in my heart, maintaining a calm expression on my face. This subject has merely experienced some things and come to accept them. So, is Miss Shen willing to help me? I looked at him and took a deep breath. This subject is willing, but this subject has 3 conditions. Speak. First, this subject will not enter the Eastern Palace and will not be an advisor on the surface. All schemes will be carried out in secret. Second, this subject will only provide counsel and strategies for your Highness, and will not participate in any direct conflicts. This subject is a merchant, not an assassin. Third, I pause. This subject requests that your Highness promise to thoroughly investigate the case of Minister Zhao after ascending the throne. This subject suspects that Minister Zhao was merely a pawn, and the true mastermind behind it all is someone else. Xiao Jingyan looked at me, a trace of admiration flashing in his eyes. Very well, I promise you all of this. From that day on, I became Crown Prince Xiao Jingyan's secret advisor. I used the names of Yunjin Pavilion and Shen's grain store to lay down an invisible web across the capital city. Shops were the best intelligence stations. Those customers coming and going, the wives of high-ranking officials and nobles, while selecting silk and satin, always loved to chat about family gossip. whose master recently got promoted, whose young master got into trouble, which families secretly formed marriage alliances. These seemingly insignificant pieces of information were collected bit by my people, compiled into records, and delivered to the Crown Prince. And Shen's grain store became my eyes and ears in the north. Those convoys transporting grain, traveling back and forth between various prefectures, brought back not only silver, but also local public sentiment, officials' movements, and even military intelligence from the borderlands. Xiao Jingyan was somewhat skeptical at first, but was soon won over by the efficiency of this intelligence network. "Miss Shen, how did you manage to do this?" he asked me during a secret meeting. "It is simple." I smiled. Men always think that important matters are decided at banquet tables and in the imperial court. But what they don't know is that the real information is often hidden in boudoirs and back kitchens. Women may seem to only care about rouge and powder, but their eyes are sharper than anyone's. Xiao Jingyan nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, I did indeed overlook this point before." Days passed one by one. In the blink of an eye, it was spring again. That year, many things happened in the capital city. The emperor's health deteriorated more and more, and he was often bedridden. The factional strife in the court also grew increasingly fierce. The Crown Prince's faction and the Second Prince's faction were fighting relentlessly. The second prince, Zhao Jinghuan, was born to the noble consort. He had been clever and quick-witted since childhood and was deeply favored by the emperor. The noble consort's family was powerful, having operated in the court for many years with deep roots. In comparison, though the Crown Prince was the legitimate eldest son, the Empress's family had long since declined, with almost no influence from maternal relatives. The only thing he could rely on was his own talent and passionate dedication. In this battle for the position of heir, the Crown Prince had been at a disadvantage from the very beginning, until my appearance. "Your Highness, the second prince has recently been making contact with several officials from the Ministry of War." I handed a piece of intelligence to Xiao Jingyan. "It is said that he wants to arrange for his people to shine at the autumn martial arts tournament, using this to win His Majesty's favor." Xiao Jingyan took the intelligence and quickly scanned it, his brows furrowing tightly. "The Ministry of War, that is Gu Huaiyan's territory." "Exactly." I nodded. Although Gu Huaiyan is nominally part of the neutral faction, his uncle Lord Zhao was brought down by us. He definitely holds a grudge. This time, when the second prince tries to win over the Ministry of War, 9 times out of 10 it'll go through Guian's hands. "You mean Your Highness might as well retreat to advance?" I said softly. "For this martial arts tournament, Your Highness need not compete for the spotlight. Let the second prince steal all the glory. Let him feel he has victory in the bag. And then, a cold smile curved at the corner of my mouth. When he gets carried away with himself, we deliver the fatal blow." Xiao Jingyan looked at me, a trace of complex emotion flashing through his eyes. "Miss Shen, what exactly is the grudge between you and Gu Huaiyan?" I froze for a moment. "Why does Your Highness say this? I've been observing you for a long time." Xiao Jingyan said slowly. "Every time Gu Huaiyan's name is mentioned, there is a trace of hatred in your eyes. That is not ordinary dislike, but bone-deep hatred. Something must have happened between you two." I remained silent for a long time. Sunlight from outside the window streamed in, casting mottled shadows on the ground. "Does Your Highness really want to know?" "I do." I took a deep breath and slowly began to speak. "Does Your Highness believe there is such a thing as an afterlife in this world?" Xiao Jingyan raised an eyebrow. "You mean reincarnation, something like that?" I looked at him and said word by word, "Your Highness, I once lived through this before. In that life, I married Gu Huaiyan. I gave him everything, my youth, my family fortune, my body even. My father's life. But in the end, what did I get in return? His neglect, his mother's persecution, his beloved schemes against me. When I died, I lay all alone in a dilapidated temple with no one by my side. I heard him say, 'If there is a next life, I need not save you.' And then I woke up. When I woke up, everything had returned to the beginning. I was still the eldest daughter of the Shen family, had not yet married Gu Huaiyan, had not yet experienced those nightmares. This time, I will not make the same mistake again. This is the most crucial turning point of the entire story. The protagonist chooses to confess the secret of her rebirth to the Crown Prince. This decision seems risky, but is actually a precise investment in trust. Why tell the Crown Prince? Because she needs an ally powerful enough, not just an employer. Notice the timing of her confession, not at the very beginning, but after she has proven her worth by predicting the drought and bringing down Minister Zhao. At this point, the Crown Prince has already developed sufficient curiosity and dependence on her, so this secret won't make him think she is crazy instead. It'll make him think, so that is how it is. All the mysteries are solved. More importantly, this confession establishes an absolute barrier of trust. She has given the Crown Prince her biggest secret, so naturally he'll give her his most important chips too. This is the core logic of high-dimensional game theory. You need to make your ally feel that he and you are in the same boat, not in an employment relationship. And with the secret of rebirth, she completes the identity leap from advisor to confidant. From this moment on, she is no longer a strategist who can be replaced at any time, but the Crown Prince's sole strategic core. The room fell into dead silence. Xiao Jingyan looked at me, eyes full of shock. He wanted to say I was talking nonsense, but the calmness and composure in my eyes left him unable to speak. So, he said in a low voice, what you call foreseeing the drought is actually because I've experienced it. I nodded. In my memories, 3 years from now, there will be a great drought in the north with total crop failure. The court will open the granaries to distribute grain, only to discover the granaries have been hollowed out by embezzlement. My father will be framed by Minister Zhao, imprisoned on charges of embezzling disaster relief funds, and in the end die in prison. Sivdi and I will be cast out by Gu Huaiyan, driven out of the Gu family, left to wander the streets, and ultimately die in a foreign land. Xiao Jingyan's pupils contracted sharply. Your father, Minister Shen, died in that lifetime. Yes, my voice was calm. But in this lifetime, I won't let it happen. Xiao Jingyan fell silent for a long while. He didn't know what to say. If what this woman before him said was true, then everything she'd experienced was simply a living hell. Yet here she stood now, expression calm, eyes clear, as if those hardships were nothing more than passing clouds. Miss Shen, he finally spoke, I believe you. I lifted my head, looking at him with some surprise. Your Highness doesn't think I'm speaking nonsense. No, Xiao Jingyan shook his head. Your eyes don't lie. From the first time we met, I felt you were different. There is something in your eyes, a wariness. That is not the kind of gaze a woman in her early 20s should have. Now I understand. He walked before me and said solemnly, Miss Shen, I promise you, in this lifetime, I will protect you. Your father will not die. The Shen family will not fall, and you will never be left to wander the streets again. In exchange, I hope you can continue to help me. I looked at him, a surge of complex emotions welling up in my heart. In my previous life, I had never met the Crown Prince. In my memory, he was just a blurry figure, a lofty heir apparent high above. But in this life, he stood before me, looking at me with the most sincere gaze, promising to protect me completely. Your Highness, I said softly, this subject thanks Your Highness for your trust. But there is one matter this subject must inform Your Highness of in advance. What matter? This subject cannot bear children. Xiao Jingyan froze. In that lifetime, to save Gu Huaiyan, this subject blocked a poisoned arrow. That arrow damaged this subject's foundation, and from then on I could never bear offspring. Although in this life that incident didn't happen. But this subject's body is weak at its core. I'm afraid it will also be very difficult to have children. This subject says these things because I don't want Your Highness to misunderstand anything. This subject is willing to be Your Highness's advisor, but only limited to that. Xiao Jingyan looked at me, his expression somewhat complex. Miss Shen, I asked you to be my advisor because I value your talent, not your body. What do you take me for by saying these things? I was stunned, then smiled. It was this subject judging a gentleman's heart with a petty person's mind. Your Highness, please forgive me. Forget it. Xiao Jingyan also smiled. Since we've come to this, I also have something to tell you. Your Highness, please speak. I also don't plan to marry. I looked at him in surprise. A crown prince not taking consorts. This has never happened since the founding of Great Liang, but I don't want any woman to be drawn into the whirlpool of this struggle for succession. After I ascend the throne, it won't be too late to consider matters of the harem. I looked at him, not knowing what I felt in my heart. This man was completely different from the crown prince I had imagined. He wasn't greedy for women, didn't indulge in pleasure. All he thought about was the common people of the realm. If he became emperor, he would surely be a wise ruler of his generation. Your Highness is most righteous, I said sincerely. What righteousness? Xiao Jingyan waved his hand dismissively. It is merely my own selfish desire. I've seen too much harem intrigue and fratricide. Those emperors and consorts who appear loving on the surface are all scheming behind the scenes. I don't want to become that kind of person myself. Once the dust settles, I'll find a woman I truly care for and live a good life with her. Having said this, he suddenly looked at me, his gaze profound. Miss Shen, what about you after all this is over? What do you plan to do? I froze for a moment, lowering my head to think. This subject doesn't know. Yes, in this life I'd been busy with revenge, busy plotting, busy protecting my family. I had never thought about what I would do after all this ended. Perhaps find a quiet place, open a small shop, and spend the rest of this life in peace and simplicity, I said softly. Xiao Jingyan looked at me, the corners of his mouth curving into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. When the time comes, remember to invite me for a cup of tea. Definitely autumn arrived. The annual martial arts tournament was held at the training grounds in the outskirts of the capital. This was a tradition of Great Liang. Every autumn, the Ministry of War would organize a martial arts tournament to review the capabilities of various military forces, and at the same time select talents for the emperor. This year's martial arts tournament was particularly eye-catching, because everyone knew this was yet another confrontation between the Crown Prince and the Second Prince. Second, Prince Xiao Jinghuan was brimming with pride and satisfaction. He had been cultivating his influence in the Ministry of War for many years and had already arranged everything. At this year's martial arts tournament, his people would definitely shine brilliantly and show the emperor his capabilities. Crown Prince Xiao Jingyan remained low-key as always. He only brought a few attendants and sat quietly in the stands, seemingly indifferent to the martial competitions on the field. I stood in a corner watching with cold eyes. Miss, what is His Highness the Crown Prince doing? Chun Tao asked me in a low voice. Why isn't he anxious at all? No rush. I smiled slightly. The good show is still to come. Sure enough, when the martial arts tournament was halfway through, an accident occurred. Those several talents arranged by the Second Prince made consecutive mistakes during the competitions. Some, during mounted archery, had their horses suddenly spooked and nearly fell off. Others, during sword duels, had their sword hilts suddenly break, almost injuring themselves. The worst off was the candidate for martial champion that the Second Prince had placed high hopes on. When he was lifting the stone lock, it actually broke in half from the middle and smashed right onto his foot, making him cry out in pain on the spot. In the stands, the emperor's expression grew increasingly unpleasant. What is going on? He roared in fury. How did the Ministry of War prepare for this? Gu Huaiyan knelt on the ground, cold sweat pouring down his forehead. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. Wei did not know. Wei had already repeatedly inspected all the equipment. Enough, the Emperor interrupted him. You are the Minister of War. All these matters are your responsibility. With such a huge blunder, you still have the face to make excuses, guards, seal away all the equipment that had problems today. I will thoroughly investigate this. The martial arts tournament ended hastily. The Second Prince was so angry his face turned green. After returning to his residence, he flew into a rage and smashed everything in his study to smithereens. Useless, all a bunch of useless trash, he said through gritted teeth. This prince prepared meticulously for so long, only to have it ruined by these inexplicable accidents. Your Highness, please calm your anger, his advisor said cautiously. In this subordinate's view, these accidents are probably not coincidences. What do you mean? Your Highness, think about it. What were the equipment that had problems? Saddles, Sword hilts, stone locks. If someone had tampered with these things beforehand, it would be very difficult to detect, and the people who could have access to this equipment. Aside from people from the Ministry of War, there is also Crown Prince. Xiao Jinghuan suddenly realized. It must be the Crown Prince. He knew of this king's arrangements all along and sabotaged them in advance. Your Highness is brilliant. A trace of viciousness flashed through Xiao Jinghuan's eyes. What a Crown Prince! This king has underestimated him. However, he sneered. Does he think this can stop this king? Too naive. Go invite that person here. This king wants to have a good talk with him. At the same time, in the mansion of the Crown Prince, Xiao Jingyan sat in his study, holding a piece of intelligence in his hand, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Miss Shen, this move of pulling the firewood from under the cauldron was brilliantly executed. I stood before him and bowed slightly. Your Highness flatters me. It was merely a small trick, a small trick. Xiao Jingyan shook his head. To be able to do all this right under the Ministry of War's nose without anyone knowing, and still escape unscathed, this is no small trick. Miss Shen, how exactly did you do it? Some things are better known by fewer people. In reality, I had merely found a few embroiderers from Yunjin Pavilion and had them infiltrate the training grounds under the pretext of mending soldiers' clothes. Those embroiderers' skills were all top-notch. They normally sewed with silk and satin, so naturally they were also very adept at sabotage. Several threads of the saddle straps were cut. The sword hilt joints were worn down by a layer. Cracks in the stone locks were filled with stone powder. These little tricks couldn't be discovered without careful inspection. When it came time for the martial competitions, those equipment would malfunction with just a bit of force, and those embroiderers had already quietly left the capital city before the martial arts conference even began. Your Highness only needs to know that the second prince has taken a major fall this time. I said softly next, Your Highness should strike while the iron is hot and make a good showing before His Majesty. You mean with such a major mishap at the martial arts conference, His Majesty will definitely investigate thoroughly. I analyzed. When that happens, after all the investigations, the final responsibility will definitely fall on Gu Huaiyan. Gu Huaiyan is the second prince's man. If he falls, the second prince's influence in the Ministry of War will be greatly diminished, and Your Highness can take the opportunity to recommend your own people to fill the vacancy. Xiao Jingyan nodded, a flash of admiration in his eyes. Miss Shen is thoroughly thoughtful. I am impressed, however. He changed his tone. Gu Huaiyan is the Empress's own nephew. Mother Empress will definitely protect him. If this matter ends up with Mother Empress, I'm afraid there will be complications, Your Highness. Rest assured. I smiled faintly. As for Her Majesty, the Empress's side, this subject has her own ways to handle it. 3 days later, the Emperor's thorough investigation yielded results. Those problematic equipment had indeed been tampered with, but no matter how much they investigated, they couldn't find out who did it. Those minor officials responsible for safeguarding the equipment were brought in for questioning over and over, but nothing could be gotten out of them. In the end, all the responsibility fell on the head of Gu Huaiyan, the Minister of War. Gu Huaiyan, the Emperor flew into a rage in the court. As Minister of War, you oversee all the military forces under heaven. At such an important martial arts tournament, you actually let someone tamper with things right under your nose. What face do you have left to stand here? Gu Huaiyan knelt on the ground, trembling all over. Your Majesty, Wei has been wronged. Wei truly doesn't know who did it. Enough, the Emperor roared furiously. I don't care who did it. When something goes wrong, you must take responsibility. Guards remove Gu Huaiyan's official hat and decorations, throw him in prison, and await sentencing, Your Majesty. A voice came from the rear hall. Everyone turned to look, only to see Her Majesty, the Empress in her phoenix robe, hurrying in. Your Majesty, Huaiyan is my own nephew. Even if he is at fault, the crime doesn't warrant this. Please, for my sake, show leniency, the Emperor frowned. Empress, this is a matter of state, not a household affair of the inner palace. You shouldn't have come here, I know. The Empress knelt down. But I really can't bear to watch Huaiyan be wronged. Those weapons were tampered with by someone clearly. Someone deliberately framed him. Huaiyan was just kept in the dark. How can you make him bear all the responsibility alone? Deliberate framing. The Emperor sneered. The Empress sure knows how to talk. Then in the Empress's opinion, who is framing Gu Huaiyan? The Empress opened her mouth, but couldn't speak. She knew clearly in her heart that the Crown Prince was the prime suspect, but she couldn't directly accuse her own son in the court. This consort doesn't know, the Emperor snorted coldly. Since you don't know, don't make trouble here, someone. Escort the Empress back to the palace. Your Majesty, Her Majesty the Empress, please wait. Another voice rang out. This time everyone was stunned. A young woman dressed in plain-colored robes walked out from the corner of the Great Hall, gracefully performing a courtesy. This subject, Shen Qingxi, greets Your Majesty, greets Her Majesty the Empress, Shen Qingqi. The Emperor frowned. What are you doing here? Replying to Your Majesty. This subject came to observe by order of His Highness, the Crown Prince. I answered respectfully. This subject shouldn't interrupt court matters, but regarding what Her Majesty the Empress just said, this subject has some different views. I wonder if it would be appropriate to speak. The Emperor glanced at me, seemingly recalling the events from 3 years ago. Speak, Her Majesty the Empress said that General Gu was framed by someone. I said slowly, but this subject feels that this matter might not be so simple. What do you mean, Your Majesty? I raised my head, my gaze frank. This subject dares to ask, when were those defective weapons delivered to the training grounds? The Emperor looked toward the Minister of Justice. The Minister of Justice hastily replied, Your Majesty, it was delivered 3 days before the martial arts competition. Then, during those 3 days, who was responsible for guarding it? It was people from the Ministry of War. In other words, I said softly, during those 3 days, only people from the Ministry of War could access the equipment. If an outsider wanted to tamper with it, they would have to first bribe someone from the Ministry of War to enter the training ground, and the people from the Ministry of War are all General Gu's subordinates. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire court erupted in commotion. Gu Huaiyan's face instantly turned deathly pale. You're slandering me. He pointed at me, his voice trembling. Why would I have someone sabotage my own martial arts competition? Don't be anxious, General Gu. I smiled slightly. This subject never said the general did it. This subject is merely stating the facts. Only people from the Ministry of War could access the equipment. If we're talking about an outsider framing someone, then how did that outsider enter the training ground? And how did they manage to tamper with so many things within 3 days without anyone noticing? Unless that outsider was actually an insider all along. Gu Huaiyan's lips trembled, but he couldn't speak. The Emperor's gaze became sharp and intense. Shen Qingqi, are you saying that Gu Huaiyan committed theft while guarding the very thing he was supposed to protect? This subject dares not make rash conclusions. I respectfully lowered my head. This subject only feels that this matter should not be hastily concluded. Your Majesty should thoroughly investigate to see whether there really is a mole within the Ministry of War. The Emperor pondered for a moment and nodded. Shen Qingxi's words are reasonable. Someone, convey my decree. Gu Huaiyan is to be temporarily stripped of his position pending investigation, and all officials in the Ministry of War are to await interrogation. Your Majesty, the Empress cried out. Empress, the Emperor looked at her coldly. I've said this is a matter of state, not some inner palace family affair. If you interrupt again, go back to your Fengyi palace. The Empress was intimidated by his imposing manner and dared not speak further. She glared at me with resentment, her eyes full of venom. This Shen Qingxi, she actually dared to publicly humiliate the Geiju family in court. Just you wait. I won't let you off. After court was dismissed, I followed the Crown Prince back to the Eastern Palace. Miss Shen, today's matter is all thanks to you, Xiao Jingyan said sincerely. If not for your quick thinking on the spot, I really wouldn't have known how to deal with Mother Empress. Your Highness is too kind. I shook my head. Her Majesty the Empress's words were full of holes to begin with. I merely pointed them out. However, I paused. Her Majesty the Empress probably won't let this go easily. Your Highness should be careful. I know, Xiao Jingyan sighed. Mother Empress is determined to help Gu Huaiyan rise through the ranks like Qing Yun to support the Gu family. But she doesn't know that the Gu family has long been tangled up with the second prince. She thinks she is helping her son, but in reality she is helping an outsider. I looked at him feeling somewhat moved. In my previous life, I knew nothing about these power struggles at court. I only knew that the crown prince eventually ascended the throne, changed the era name to Yongchang, and became a wise ruler of his generation. But I didn't know how much he had given up, how much he had sacrificed along this path, Your Highness. I said softly, "This subject has something she wishes to ask, Your Highness." "Ask, Your Highness. Do you hate Her Majesty the Empress?" Xiao Jingyan fell silent. After a long while, he finally spoke. "I don't hate her. She is this solitary one's mother and empress. No matter what she has done, she will always be this solitary one's mother and empress. This solitary one just feels the chill in his heart." I looked at him, not knowing what to feel. This man, clearly caught in the whirlpool of power, yet always maintained a pure and innocent heart. He didn't hate, didn't resent, only silently endured everything. Someone like this deserves to be emperor. "Your Highness," I took a deep breath. "No matter how difficult the road ahead, this subject will accompany Your Highness through it, until Your Highness ascends to that position." Xiao Jingyan looked at me, a trace of emotion flashing in his eyes. "Miss Shen, no need to thank me." I interrupted him. "This is what this subject owes Your Highness, owes this solitary one. Back then, regarding His Majesty's oral decree, if Your Highness hadn't spoken well of me before His Majesty, this subject would probably have been forced to marry Guhuayan long ago." Xiao Jingyan froze for a moment, then laughed. "Miss Shen, you still remember this matter?" "Of course I remember." I smiled too. "Your Highness said back then, a forced melon isn't sweet, and had His Majesty rescind the decree, this subject has always kept it in her heart. That was merely a small effort. To Your Highness it was a small effort, but to this subject it was a life-saving grace." We smiled at each other, everything understood without words. The Ministry of War's thorough investigation lasted half a month. In the end, 7 or 8 petty officials who had embezzled military funds and colluded with enemy nations were uncovered, all thrown into prison to be executed after autumn. Although Gu Huaiyan hadn't directly participated in these matters, as Minister of War, he had failed to strictly supervise his subordinates and was also stripped of his position and salary, demoted to commoner status. Overnight, the once glorious general who pacified the north became an ordinary commoner. The Gu family's gates also became desolate from then on. Those who had once curried favor with the Gu Si family now all kept their distance, afraid of being implicated. Her Majesty the Empress fell gravely ill from anger, lying in Fengyi Palace for half a month before barely managing to get out of bed. She hated me to the bone, yet could do nothing to me, because I was the Crown Prince's person, and the Crown Prince was currently in the Emperor's favor. 3 more years passed, the Emperor's health deteriorated day by day, until finally on a late autumn night, he passed away in his bedchamber. Before his death, he tightly gripped Xiao Jingyan's hand, leaving behind his final decree: the throne is to be passed to Crown Prince Xiao Jingyan. The day Xiao Jingyan ascended the throne, I stood in the crowd, watching from afar as he donned the dragon robe and stepped up to that magnificent dragon throne, 1 step at a time. 6 years. From the day I was reborn, a full 6 years, I finally waited for this day. The first thing the new emperor did after ascending the throne was to thoroughly investigate Lord Zhao's case from back then. Just as I expected, Lord Zhao was merely a pawn. The real masterminds behind it all were second Prince Xiao Jinghuan and the faction of Consort Shu backing him. They wanted to bring down the Shen family because the Shen family's trade routes and connections were a threat to their smuggling operations. They wanted to win over the Gu family because the Gu family held military power, which was an important bargaining chip for their struggle for succession. And my father was nothing more than a sacrificial piece on their game board. Xiao Jingyan was furious and issued an edict to demote Xiao Jinghuan to commoner status, ordered Consort Shu to commit suicide, and had all their followers' homes raided and exiled. Although the Gu family did not directly participate in these conspiracies, correspondence between Old Lady Gu and Lord Zhao was uncovered, proving she had known all along what Lord Zhao was doing, but chose to conceal it. Old Lady Gu was stripped of her noble title, And the Gu family's peerage was also revoked, reducing them to commoners. As for Gu Huaiyan, overnight he went from being the former general who pacifies the north to the disgraced son of a guilty official. The day the Gu family fell, I was in the Yunjin pavilion reviewing account books. Chun Tao rushed in hurriedly, her expression complicated. "Miss Gu Huaiyan is here." I put down the account book and said calmly, "Let him in." When Gu Huaiyan walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. The once spirited and vigorous general now looked haggard and withered, with a few strands of white hair growing at his temples. He looked at me, his eyes full of complex emotions, regret, unwillingness, pain, and a trace of something I couldn't understand. "Shen Jingxi," he spoke in a hoarse voice. "I came to ask you something." "Go ahead." "What you said that day. If there is another life, I don't need to save you." His voice trembled slightly. What did that mean? I looked at him and remained silent for a long time. "Gu Huaiyan, do you really want to know?" "I do." I stood up, walked to the window, and turned my back to him. "In another place, there was a woman who loved you like crazy. To save you, she jumped into icy lake water and nearly lost her life. To help you, she offered up her father's trade routes and connections with both hands, allowing you to establish a firm foothold at court. To protect you, she blocked an assassin's poisoned arrow and could never bear children again. But how did you treat her?" I turned around and looked into his eyes. "You despised her for not being able to bear children and let Liu Yunyan climb into your bed. You believed slanderous words, thought she had harmed your mother, and drove her out of the house. You watched her wander the streets homeless, yet remained indifferent. In the end, she died in a dilapidated temple, with no one by her side, and you stood before her grave saying, 'If there is a next life, I need not save you.'" Gu Huaiyan's face turned deathly pale. I don't remember." "Of course you don't remember," I said softly, "because that was from another life. But I remember. I remember every detail, every bit of pain, every inch of despair. So in this life, I didn't save you, I didn't marry you. I let you taste what it is like to be abandoned." Gu Huaiyan stood there, trembling all over. He wanted to say something, but couldn't utter a single word. "You should leave." I turned around, no longer looking at him. "From now on, there will be nothing between us anymore. Shen Qingti, Chun Tao, show the guest out." After Gu Huaiyan left, I stood by the window watching his staggering figure as he departed. No satisfaction, no relief, only a faint sense of release. The grudges from the previous life ended here. 2 more years passed. Xiao Jingyan's realm gradually stabilized, and he became the enlightened ruler people spoke of. He reduced taxes, built irrigation works, reformed official administration, bringing a thriving scene to Daliang. As for me, I continued with my business. Yunjin Pavilion's branches opened in every prefecture of Daliang, and Shen's grain store also became the largest grain merchant in the north. I was immensely wealthy, yet still lived in the old Shen residence, leading a simple life. That spring, Xiao Jingyan left the palace in disguise and came to the cloud brocade pavilion. "Miss Shen, I've come for that cup of tea." I looked at him and couldn't help but smile. "Your Majesty handles countless affairs daily. How do you have time to visit this humble shop of mine? No matter how busy, I must come see an old friend." He sat down in the chair and took the tea I handed him. "Miss Shen, there is something I want to ask you." "Please speak, Your Majesty." "Have you ever thought about entering the palace?" I froze for a moment. "What does Your Majesty mean by this? I've been on the throne for 2 years now, and the inner palace has remained empty." Xiao Jingyan looked at me, his gaze earnest. "The court officials keep urging me to hold selections and take consorts, but I don't fancy any of them. I've thought it over and over, and the only woman who catches my eye is you." I looked at him, my heart a jumble of emotions. "Your Majesty, I told you before that I cannot bear children. I know. I also said that I only wanted to be your Highness's advisor. That was before." Xiao Jingyan stood up and walked in front of me. "Now I don't need an advisor anymore. What I need is someone who can accompany me through this life. Shen Qingti, all these years, I've been watching you. You're smart, you're strong, you're kind, and you have a heart more clear-sighted than anyone's. I don't care whether you can bear children or not, and I don't care about your background. I only care about you as a person. Will you accept?" I looked at him, my eyes gradually moistening. In my previous life, I gave all my love to someone who didn't deserve it, and ended up with a miserable fate. In this life, I thought I would never love again, but this man before me, over the course of 6 years, has slowly walked into my heart, bit by bit. He trusts me, respects me, protects me. He never despises me, never uses me. He just wants to be with me. Your Majesty, I took a deep breath. This subject has one condition. Speak. This subject doesn't want to be empress, nor do I want to be a concubine. I looked at him. This subject only wants to be your Majesty's friend. Xiao Jingyan froze for a moment, then smiled. All right, from now on you call me Jingyan, and I'll call you Qingqi. Let's be friends for a lifetime. What happened after that is recorded in the history books. Emperor Yongshang Xiao Jingyan reigned for 30 years and ushered in the golden age of Great Liang. In his lifetime, he only married one empress, surnamed Shen, named Qingqi. The emperor and empress treated each other with respect and raised the tray to eyebrow level. And though they had no children, they loved each other for life. After the emperor's death, the empress refused to move to another palace, and instead built a small hermitage beside the emperor's mausoleum, with only a lamp and Buddha until the end of her days. Before her death, she left only one sentence in this life. I finally became the person I wanted to be. If there is another life, I want to live like this again. In her previous life, Shen Qingxi gave her chips to others, gave her fate to others, gave the power to define her value to others. What did she do in this life? She jumped out of the game rules set by her opponent and redefined victory at a higher dimension. The highest form of revenge isn't making your opponent die, but making him watch helplessly as you live 10,000 times better than him. About that ending, she and Xiao Jingyan aren't man saves woman, but an equal agreement between two souls. She said, "This subject only wishes to be your Majesty's friend. This is what a true alliance of the strong looks like. I don't need you to support me. You don't need me to carry on your lineage. We simply happen to choose each other as comrades in arms." The greatest satisfaction of this story isn't Gu Huaiyan kneeling and begging for mercy, but Shen Qingxi doesn't need him to beg for mercy at all. Her final answer wasn't, "Do you know how much I hate you? But from now on, between you and me, there is no connection whatsoever. You're no longer the protagonist of my story. You're not even worthy of being my opponent.